also. Like, so I'm more like an enthusiast. Yeah.
How did you get it mixed up into all this history mess? This is a mess. I can, especially our history. Everybody else's history might be straightforward, but not ours.
Yeah. That's like two questions.
No, you.
But how did I get into this?
Mm.
Obviously by trying to find out who I really am, because I didn't like, not to say fit, but I could see that there's an identity that I have that is maybe different from the people I was living amongst. That is like, I didn't have the history of, you know.
What do you mean?
So I mean, it's like this. I'm a Muhuruzi, and I'm of the Babuani clan. So I didn't know how the Babuani clan, or the clan that I belong to, fit into the Hurusi identity, and how it relates to other Hurusi clans and all of that.
Okay. Oh, I thought maybe you were going to say because you found yourself living among the Baliti. Was that?
I know
that
it wasn't a factor, because with Balete, there's also a very strong Hurusi presence amongst Balete. So and with that also, maybe other clans I could know or have. What was it? What is this? Maybe these ones could be linked to that other clan from elsewhere, not from maybe a separate Huruti village, and from Ramos.
Before I met you, I had never heard of Bapuan, but I knew of a location called Puani in Lihurutsi.
Yeah.
But anyway, I didn't know. I just thought it was just a village name.
Mm-hmm.
So, seeing that you are a young man, how did you generate, or where did how was the interest in your history cultivated in you for you to seek it?
Yeah, well, these things you get taught from home. You are told we belong to this clan. You get it from your father, your paternal uncles, and all of that. Mostly, even the mothers, they'll tell you, well, I belong to this particular clan, or Twana clan, or Twana tribe. Then yours is this one because your father is, by virtue of being,
How were those? Okay, I hear what you said, but like, how were those lessons imparted to you? Was there like a formal structure where your family spoke about these kind of things, or how did it happen for you?
Hey, with me, I wouldn't say my experience had been like many others. I wouldn't say it's also unique, but whenever your parents could get a chance, or whenever something happens that requires you to, maybe not requires you, but like your parents find the opportunity to teach you cultural things, they do. It's not at a specific setup. I wasn't taught at a specific setup. Like every time,
it's just around the family
life. Around the family life.
Yeah.
At a time where maybe somebody passes on, they'll tell you how you relate with this person. When somebody gets married, they tell you how you relate with this person. How such. What other example can I give? But generally, that's how I got to learn.
Yeah, very interesting. I think I have a similar situation with you in the sense that we lived among a different group of Botswana.
Oh, right.
We lived among the Bakwena. Well, I mean, I grew up in Gaborone, but when we were in the traditional setup, our setup would be in Molepolole, where among the Bakwena. And it was funny because at family gatherings, like you were saying, my father's brothers would always be saying, Motwening,
Yeah, that too. With where I grew up, you'd also find in my growing up, you also find situations where people call you by your totem. They don't call you by maybe the totem of the people you live amongst. And also, another thing would be you also get invites from, different places, and the invites will be from maybe a wedding or whatever function the other people would have that you relate with. I mean, you'd wonder how you got to know people from maybe South Africa, because you're living in Botswana. Then that's when you learn the fruities in South Africa, and you wonder how you got to be in Botswana. So that inspire you, ask you get curious, you do inspire a question, and you get the answers.
And I think when you are among your kin, your family people, especially like the wider extended family, there's always some kind of warmth that you feel when you're around people like that, when you are all divided according to your, whether it's your rank or your gender. When people are around there, they talk things that evoke your tribal identity. And when you see the older men of your clan, maybe reciting poetry or something, doesn't it make you feel good?
No, it makes one feel very great. When you say that, I'm reminded of how some other people just would take pride in something that would make me feel very good. Some people who maybe have been like, their mothers came from my family and they're not necessarily from my clan, taking pride, just taking pride in the sense that what's the word? The maternal side it's our family, and the reverence they would have would make me really feel good and think of myself kind of like.
Does your family have are you like part of the royals anywhere?
Yeah, in a sense, because my people, we sort of like in the Botswana side, so this side of the border, I'm pretty sure we're the most senior of the Bapuani clan, and the Bapuana are found in other settlements or other Tswana villages. So in that, it will tell you that there's a hierarchy, there's a hierarchy, there's a structure, and we know where we fit in it. And with my family story, I also learned that my great grandparents, when they moved and settled in Mokobane, where we currently like situated, it is because there were fights, royal disputes, and that coincided with the Boer invasions and tyranny around Lufutsi. So, and that's the reason why we got to move from where we were first and settle in Mokobane. And it isn't my family only. So all the other families that came with my family were like royals from Lufutsi, from all these other villages of Lufutsi. So and that honor and respect is been given to us.
That's interesting, because myself, we are not from, it doesn't look like we have any royal leanings whatsoever. But still, there's always that warmth when you are around your kin. And, one of the things that I remember very fondly is how, for instance, my father was the last born in a family of about 10 or 9 or 11, something like that. And obviously, so everybody else was older than him. But when his brothers were addressing you, for instance, I just used to like the way they would say it. They had a point, and I later found out that it was not unique to my family, where they call you by your relational, not relational terms per se, but how you relate. They'll say, my brother's daughter. They don't call you by your name. They'll say, come here, my brother's daughter.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you get to know, okay, I am that to him. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
And they would say it with so much fondness that you couldn't feel anything but just to be happy to be part of
Such
a family.
structure,
yeah, you know. So, and I was just going to say, with me, the whole time I've been thinking that I'm a Mokoena, honestly, because we live there. I hear people address my father as Mokoena, but I remember when I was much younger, when I had to do a school composition to write about where you are from and all that, and I had to ask my parents about the cultural stuff that I didn't know, and the teacher told me, oh, if you are from Molepolole, then it means you are a Mokoena. Then I wrote the composition saying that I was a Mokoena. When I got home, my parents saw my book, and my father was like, no, but yes, we are Bakwena, but we are not really Bakwena. And that thing kind of threw me off because I must have been around 9 years old and I was now confused.
Yeah.
And he told me, no, we are not Bakwena, we are Bahurutsi, and our totem is a baboon.
Mm.
So that kind of, it kind of hurt me in a way.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
And I, you know, I had a sneaky feeling that maybe my father was wrong. Can you imagine?
Yeah, no.
Because that's what my teacher told me. When you are a certain age, it's easy for you to pick up influences and information and identities from other people. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah. Well, I think that would be that you maybe were living in a city, between the city and the village. Because with me, I was never confused or had that challenge, because even the royals from the village that I live in, or I was raised in, would refer to us would refer to my father, and us as Batsweni, would acknowledge that we are who we are. They were aware of who we are each time. And there was also sort of the kinship of Bahurusi, the nationhood or brotherhood that I've seen it, I've experienced it from even where I was. So a lot of people who came in visiting were Bahurusi, and you could see that the joy of like acknowledging each other, it lived throughout where I was lived, because I was lived in more of like a traditional settlement.
And also, I think just because you were male, the men in any family would be the ones to what do you call it, to keep the bonds and the cultural things alive more than the women. You know what I'm saying? I think it also had, other than the fact that I lived in town and away from everybody, chances are my father went to see his family more than he took us with him. So he was able to continue some of those cultural things unbeknownst to me. No, I'm just saying.
I totally get it, but I would say it had been my experience also, but that you never go to functions until you are a certain age, you are mature enough to meet people. So therefore, if your father goes to all those, cultural maybe, or things that may have opened your eyes to like your identity things and stuff like that, you miss out because you don't go there. But I'm reminded of something like what you said, I about being male or being a boy child growing up. Yeah, I got to, even when you are sent to maybe one of those distant cousins or people who are Bahuruti, because of the bonds that they had. As a boy, I could go to a particular house, and I'm welcome with the praise poetry, for Bahuruti. It's not just like come in, the whoever is there will start chanting and reciting the praise poetry. So you can imagine, as a boy, you're 11 years, some old man sees you and just burst into that, into
that's
poetry.
That's nice.
Yeah,
nice.
You feel honored.
Yeah,
you feel honored, and it sort of like cultivates that sort of ethnic pride, and
Yeah. So one thing that I think I want us to talk about is I think that I picked you because you are a Muhuruti like me. And I know that you are very enthusiastic about learning our history. And, Bahuruti, it's, no, let me say this. Botswana in general are thirsting and hungry to learn about that true history. A lot of it has been obscured by circumstances, by colonization primarily, I think, and Christianity. So it's always interesting because you and I, we are members of various Facebook groups where different groups of Botswana try to get together to talk about history. And some of the things that always come up are that there are many points of convergence as far as what are our true historical facts. And there are many contested facts. And anyway, I don't have a problem with English words sometimes escaping me because, I speak Setswana first and English second. And by the way, one of the reasons why we're speaking in English is because we are trying to broaden debates. And we might catch some flack from some of our folks saying, why are you not speaking in Setswana?
We can't even be discussing our issues in a foreign language.
It makes sense. How do you feel about that before I even go on? Do we care? We should.
No, we'll talk about it in the native tongue if it's necessary.
Or maybe we can just make another recording with that, just so that, because we are trying to widen debates, the circles. That's why we use English, so that if somebody else somewhere knows something that we may have missed, a book, they should be able to help us. So I think that's why we do it. It's just a record that we are leaving, but we are very conversant. We speak, Babo and I speak English. I mean, in Setswana, we speak Setswana better than we do speak English. I get
very true.
But for the purpose of what we are trying to do now, it's important for us to say it English because we are trying to reach wider audiences and to broaden debates. That's the sole reason. And so anyway, I was saying there are many contested facts or lack thereof about Tswana history. And it looks like there's a lot, what? Botswana, there's a lot that has been written about Botswana, yet there's a lot more that hasn't been written about Botswana. And, we are now living in 2023, the 21st century. It's been 200 years, I think, when our nation was completely destroyed by colonialism. It started off with Tifekani 200 years ago, and it culminated into like about 80 years of colonization of Botswana, for instance, and it was much longer for South Africa. Well, around about the same time.
We just experienced the same thing packaged differently.
But the West form of colonization that happened in South Africa started in 1910, right? Even though before
could be 1940, the 1930s.
I'd argue, full blown. But the start of it. The start of it was around, was it 1910 when they came up with the Native Land Act, when they took the land? You see what I mean?
I think 1910 is when the territories, I don't know like the implications of that Native Land Act, what it entailed. But I mean, what I know the results. I see the results, which is like the European states that were set up in our territories, the land that was stolen were joined together in 1910, and I think that paper may have something to do with it. Yes, because the few states in that region, in the South African region, were put together and turned into a state. So like that's the main thing. But if you say the worst thing that had happened to us, and was that came after that. I'll differ because prior to that, when we lost the land to these people, and we lost lives to these people, and we lost we subjected to slavery, and we lost our minds to these people, and they forcefully had moved us out of those territories.
In the 1870s.
1870s.
That's when it
from
started,
1852.
Yeah,
say
yeah.
1852 to 1880.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the worst season.
Yeah. But anyway, that's far too ahead of what we're trying to say. I just wanted us to talk about who amongst us, because you and I are not scholars in the conventional sense.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we do not have access to information and knowledge.
Yeah.
So who among us as Botswana is supposed to present or even render our history in public, to the public? Who should know and who can know about Botswana history, and who can tell it, according to you?
Well, I think it should have been something that was discussed like on a national stage from maybe 1966, because that's when we attained self-rule, or for the South Africans, I would say around 77 or maybe 1994, depending on which era you think like Black people were kind of like in power. And I would say also, even today, currently, who should be who should be discussing these things, what should be done. I think the legislators also, I think I hold a thought that maybe our legislators maybe in parliament or wherever don't really have an appreciation of what has happened in the past, and that lack of information, you sort of like you have the house that you're building in, the foundation that you're building in isn't, you don't have a foundation of what you're trying to do, because you don't know how you got there and why you are there, and you just like focus on development, but you're trying to develop something that
is it to develop there? It almost feels like they want to destroy everything that was done before then and to run with a new European styled model.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I think it's the ignorance that is as a result of the ignorance of what has happened in the past, or maybe not they don't have an accurate picture of what has happened in the past, because they haven't taken time to look into the past.
And I don't really blame them. I agree with you. I don't blame them. The problem is all this information has been hidden from view. Whether you think that it was deliberate or not is debatable. But the fact that a lot of the writings about our history, because remember, we were just a largely oral culture. And when starting with the coming of the missionaries, Christian missionaries, and the colonizers, they wrote down a whole lot of things about us, okay, that can help us get to understand.
Yeah.
But then all this information was taken and put in books and kept in universities. Not everybody had access to those universities.
Yeah.
or that kind of information,
Yeah.
And I always tell people that it is only recent that things that were written 100 years ago has just fallen out of copyright use. And so we can access them for free on the internet. But before then, you had to buy all these bulky books for exorbitant amounts. And I mean, if you were
visit exclusive libraries, and you have to fly to New York or England,
Yeah.
So it was preserved for rich people
and
educated
academics.
people. Academics. That's why when you said when I said legislators, I wanted to say legislators should be leading, but they should have been a strong support from the universities or academic world. And who else? I was thinking of the other people who were supposed to be involved in that, in leading, in terms of discussion, debate, and and reform. Because I think right now, even the most simplest corrective measure that could have been put in place has never had a chance. Wasn't.
One of the most interesting things that I discovered very, very recently, like in the last month, was about Professor June.
Yeah.
That I think he was teaching at Fort Hare, or one of those old time colleges for Black people, and he was recruited to come and work in Botswana, or he was running away from something, and he ended up coming to teach in Botswana. And he ended up being recruited by the university to start up a history department.
Right.
You understand?
Yeah.
So and then they took him to further studies, for instance, I think in America or somewhere. And while he was gone, Thomas Crow came, and he kind of held the fort for him while he was gone. And we know that he's the one guy who wrote a very comprehensive book called The History of Botswana. Even though you and I know we've discussed it before, we are grieved about a lot of the things that he wrote, but some of them are okay. You know what I'm saying? So since Thomas Crow, who else has been there to try and set things in motion? In the right path, in the right direction, not just.
Yeah, but like I think I know we are missing voices in as far as that discussion is concerned, but I think Dr. Jeff Ramsey has done good for us. He's one of the people we shouldn't even try to overlook.
Yeah, because we salute. Yeah, he's one who got me interested in history. You know that.
I also benefited a lot from his teachings, especially since the Facebook era. I think he's the one who really done great for us.
Yeah, we have the Fred Mortons as well. I'm not saying, I'm talking, I think, not trying to be weird. I was talking about native people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Americans or Europeans, or they could even be, some of them could even be citizens of Botswana. Yeah. I'm not trying to malign them in any way. I'm just saying.
Yeah. No, history sometimes has a cultural element to it, and I know maybe if you're not if you didn't grow up in that environment, there may be some things that you possibly miss that somebody who was brought up in an environment would have.
The thing about it is
maybe highlighted or seen the significance of.
I don't dispute that people, even Shapera, people like that used to go around interviewing people. Yeah. It's not like they were writing from the top of their heads. And they also had all these older records from the missionary era that they could consult and try to see what was happening. So that's the way it has been for us, where travelers, just regular travelers, missionaries, traders, and those kind of people were the first ones, the Europeans, the first Europeans, to record our history and cultural, whatever they observed about our cultures at the time, from way back in the early 1800s, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of those things, what I find is that a lot of the things that they wrote coincide, or they kind of match and gel well with our oral histories that we know, even though there will always be variations, because even amongst ourselves, we can tell the same story with a little bit of variations. So, I'm not worried about that. But then I just kind of want us to go back to, even though this is kind of long-winded, let's go back to say, what are you saying about who is supposed to be the one in the forefront, and why are they not doing it?
Well, yes. Lastly, before I get into that, I wanted to comment Dr. Jeff Ramsey, because with him there was an element of reach to it, because he's the one who really took the history from the universities and gave it to the people.
Yeah, for him,
so different from, because I've met Professor Klug's books in school in the curriculum, and I wouldn't want to fault them, because with these other things is with this school curriculums, I think some of these things, there's an element of simplifications depending on what age you're catering to, and what you want to. I wouldn't say political motives, but I'd say it's simplified and packaged in a particular manner for reasons I could not understand, or I cannot explain today. But yeah, you were asking about who's to. Today, I felt like we're at an age where we have like better access to information now, right, than before. So, well, culturally, these things of discussing where we come from and all of that, our history, is something we are all people, right? And it was a responsibility of everyone, of every household, or every leader in every household to teach also. So I think if there's a culture or a practice that has been lost, it may be time for us to try to retrieve it while we still can, and so that, because now I've met people who are really clueless and maybe clueless about the history, and I could see that and I can tell from their utterances, or maybe what they'll be saying or what they'll be thinking, because it lacks, an appreciation of the backstory of our backstory, where we come from, our background, and why things are supposed to be they are today, or maybe why things are not supposed to go in a certain direction,
Why do you think that the teaching or the transmission of history or the learning of history is important to a Motswana person today? Why do you think it's important? I mean, you know that through our education system, it is just thrown in there very casually. Even sometimes I think we learn more European history than we learn African history, right?
Yeah.
So why do you think it's important for us as Botswana?
First of all, we in our beings, we represent one thing differently. So you might as well know who you are first. I don't think like why do I think we need to continue the conversation or continue the tradition of understanding our history? I mean, I've seen the benefits with me, I've seen the benefits with me because I walk with much confidence.
Knowing who you are,
knowing who I am, and knowing who I am, and I understand things, and it builds a sense of patriotism, responsibility, teaches you responsibility, because when you know, you start to appreciate even the most what's the word?
What looks like an insignificant action or event, in the cultural context.
It builds a great sense of awareness.
Yeah.
Really, so
no, you should, like you said, I really like what you said. You have to know your first. How are you gonna, if you are, somebody stops you on the, maybe you're in China and somebody says, who are you? You better be able to account for yourself. How are you gonna say, I am Babo and just think that that's enough?
Yeah, we cannot.
And what if he says, no, you are a slave?
Yeah.
You understand? You
don't deserve this.
No, you better know. I agree. High five.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's like that. I mean, well, with the current situation, I've seen with people who does not have that knowledge of themselves, they tend not to be. Let's not talk about it.
You're belittled.
Yeah, but
there's no pride. I mean,
there's no sort of pride, so no sense of responsibility.
I mean, it's just, you know what it's like? It's like when you are from a family where you don't know who your father is. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like your identity is so important. The first thing, because everybody will know who gave birth to you. But if you don't know where your father is, you are a subject of ridicule.
Yeah.
On the streets, even in the family sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I think there are many reasons why we should care about it, because what we were taught at school is so little.
Yeah.
Even it was like a summary. Now we need to know the nitty-gritty. That's my view.
Yeah.
Because as the Botswana nation, we have no pride, like except for the world knows the Republic of Botswana.
Yeah.
But they don't really know what a Motswana is. If I'm just walking out there with everybody else, people wouldn't necessarily know that I'm a Motswana, because there's nothing distinguishing me from everybody else.
Yeah. Now I remember telling somebody from the United States that there are more, who had lived in Botswana for about 4 years. And I was telling that person that there are more ethnic Botswana in South Africa than in Botswana. She was like perplexed, and she didn't believe me at first. So, but she with research, she got to see that I was telling her the truth. So I mean, and that also, people who don't understand what is Botswana, what's the name, what's the relevance of the name, such who constitute Botswana, such things.
Do you know how, when you're a child, the thing that builds up your self-esteem as a child, some of them, they get praise from their parents because they did well at school, or they won a soccer tournament or whatever. You understand?
Yeah.
That is like a foreign way of trying to build up a child. But with us, no, you needed to know who your grandfather is, what battle he fought in. You know what I'm saying? So that if somebody was trying to say you are a nobody, you'll say, no, I'm somebody.
I'm
even
somebody.
Even if you were not of royal lineage.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much pride in just being who you are. It doesn't matter which ethnicity you are from. You better know it. You better claim it with all its glories, with all its faults, with all its inelegant parts.
Yes, yeah. I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. And not to say other people, look, it's important that we know who we really are, because other people out there know who they are.
Yeah.
So
and they use that to gain advantage over you.
Yeah. So you don't want to be that one who doesn't know, who doesn't really have an understanding of themselves. You meet a Chinese guy who really understands what is.
And now you find Botswana trying to even, they think that it's a mark of sophistication for them to know cultural things from other cultures.
Yeah.
Like we are almost, if Botswana don't claim that identity, they are on the verge of disappearing.
Yeah.
Because we are just Africans like all other Africans. We look like other Africans. And if there's no distinguishing characteristics or factors that are outwardly visible.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
So, and with the coming of globalization, we're just going to blend in, and we're going to do the bidding of other nations, if you ask me. Because they'll be like, no, we are all the same. Of course, we are all the same. We're all human. Everybody deserves respect. But instead of me learning Mozart and knowing too deep into classical music, we have our own music that we should be proud of. That's my view.
No, it's very important. I also, to support what you're saying, I look at it this way. Look, who's the chief? Hosi Makholokwe would have died in vain. Hosi Mpoloken Luko would have died in vain, and all these communities that died with him, Hosi Lenzoba would have died in vain. Hosi Lenzwe, not Lenzwe, Khamanyana Bakatla would have died in vain if you don't know, like, these people died to protect your heritage, your culture, your land, your language, your music, they would have.
Absolutely.
So you must know that lives were lost for maybe the privileges that we have and don't seem to appreciate. today, you know.
We think they're backward now.
We think they're backward now, but you know, somebody had to sacrifice his life you to have access to such, you know.
And the peace that we gained from all those battles.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
Everywhere else in Africa, every other country, there's a war, there's a civil war, or this and that. We've been so blessed so far not to have been there. We've been there. Actually, they mustn't think that it's only happening to them. We've been through the worst wars.
We've been through the worst wars and
fighting amongst ourselves, fighting against the Europeans.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we deserve this little relative calm, though I don't know how much longer we have it.
Would be able to sustain it.
You understand? Just because, and I think,
but it's intertwined with the culture.
Yes, I was going to say, I think if we allow ourselves to lose it all, we're going to be exposed. We're not going to be cohesive. It's going to be easy for anybody and everybody to come in and do just like they did back in 1886.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
So that there's so much that we have to live for, and there are many reasons why we need to understand what our history is, so that we know who we are and how it came to be that we are who we are today.
Yeah.
And how to go. It will help us learn how to move forward then into the future.
And if we are to destroy it, destroy everything, let it not be because we don't know that we are these people. Let it be an intentional thing or something that we are aware of. You know, it would be sad, it would be unfortunate if, you know, people can destroy their own heritage because they don't know that it's their heritage and it's unique to them, maybe, or whatever. Or see some people benefiting off of it when they could be the ones who are benefiting off of the heritage, you know.
Babo, you know what I've seen? It's like every time a Motswana person tries to say anything outwardly and loudly about their culture, their history, their heritage, it looks like, especially in Botswana, it looks like we are being tribalistic, or we are labeled as tribalistic. What I know for a fact is that ethnic pride in itself is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
The only problem comes in when you think that you are better than other people. And I don't think that's what we are trying to do here. Everybody has the same amount of dignity. That's just the way God made it. Even if you are a king or whatever, your humanness is not Babo plus one. You're still just an individual. When you die, we all get buried underground. You understand? So that's what I mean when I say every person's dignity is the same. You might have more respect or whatever, but it doesn't mean you are better. You understand? And some of the things that I think it should be very important for us to come out front to say, no, we are not saying we're better than anybody. We are only trying to find out who we are, how we got to be this way, where we're going, so that we can, because if we forsake all that cultural and traditional and historical stuff, what are we going to teach our children? You understand? It means they're going to lose our way of life, and they're going to end up looking up to heroes from other cultures, and their cultures, guess what? They're still going to rise and rise, whereas we have allowed ours to die.
Ours to die. And I want to say, when you're saying, when you have maybe a strong sense of ethnic pride or awareness, other people may deem you or look at you as if you are maybe a tribalist or tribalistic. I'd say, for me, I think we must have an honest criticism of ourselves if needs be. With me, I never had an experience of like treating people less just because they're different. And it's mainly because I didn't interact. It's not mainly because it's not the reason why that is, but I was trying to highlight that I didn't meet a lot of people from different many other ethnicities growing up, like, because I was like somewhere in the middle. So my interaction with maybe other tribes was minimal. So what I have today, it's not to compete with others. It's something that I've learned, that I've grown with, and I'm just continuing it. It's not to do with, it has nothing to do with other people, you know. It's not like now that I'm grown and I travel and I meet a lot of people, it's always nice to meet somebody from a different identity as me, you know. You know, I would want to spend more time with that person and learn the differences in our cultures, differences in our languages. It's a fascination of mine, you know. I like to, you know, I meet integration with a different mentality, you know. But I think people that may have had a history of interacting with each other, and I have like are from different ethnicities, may have had not so good interactions, and I think it's sort of like carried over to the current generations, and you find that people who see yourself with this sort of like strong ethnic identity, or may feel threatened by it, not knowing that I come from the environment that I come from, you know, and it has nothing to do with what they historically have amongst each other. So different Botswana tribes and different had different experiences with different peoples as an issue of like a geopolitical issue, or proximity, to put it simple, to each other, you know. But unfortunately, my tribe and where I grew up, and there was very little, you know. Well, so and it would be very unfair to judge me that way. Yeah.
No, that's fine. Yeah, now I really want us to talk about Bahurutsi.
Yeah.
Our tribe, and what's happening with it. What's the future? Because, excuse me, I just have to talk to somebody who's helping us with the technical recording. So,
right.
Yeah. So Bahurutsi, you and I are Bahurutsi, and we are members of many Facebook groups where we've been accused of very many things.
Yeah.
But I would like us to take a moment to discuss this issue to the greatest extent and length that we can, just so that we can understand, or other people can understand our point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does it mean to be a Bahurutsi? What are Bahurutsi? Who are they? Where are they?
Yeah. Oh, well, you were talking about other people from there's so many
groups,
social media platforms, and what do you experience with them? And I wanted to say, when you were talking about like my experience growing up, and how I discovered who I was from other people, you know, some things that you learn from home, and others that you learn from outside. You know, one other thing that really sort of like got me into this, like, the word is, what's the word? Interest, like that elevated my interest in my ethnic identity, or it's the fact that I was regarded as a senior, you know. You know, you're a small boy and somebody says, "You my elder," you know. So somebody tells you that you are my elder. So you judge me for that. You judge me for that, because part of the reason why I'm into this is because
you knew this.
Yeah.
So you wanted to see where it derives from.
Yeah, I knew that I was a big man, and I wanted to know where it all emanates from.
What does the seniority thing mean? What is it?
Look, what was I saying? No, I was leading somewhere. Yeah. So when you're talking about this thing of having interact with other people and in social media platforms and being accused of many things, you know, some people now, because this is like something that we have now because of the years of colonialism that we've endured, and tribal disunity because of different forces that played a part in the current thing, the current setup. As look, I am Muhuruti, and I've known that Bahuruti are the Maloma Tote of Botswana, which means it's like the senior most Tswana group. Like there's a ranking system that had been established amongst Botswana, centuries ago, and it has been kept as that until foreign invasion. So I mean, when you say who are Bahuruti and what are they, where are they found, and one first point is these are the people who are known to be the most senior Tswana group. So
senior how?
I mean, the elements in the elements or the practices, the elements that the practice was or the seniority was celebrated or kept
or
demonstrated sort of like have fallen out of use or because of these colonial things. But one thing so it is well, what do I want to say? I was saying it is kind of like fallen out of use, but the name or the tag has survived, because we are divided now by borders or country states. We are divided by provinces, by districts. We are divided. We no longer have what we used to have. So you ask what does it mean? And how did it come about? From my understanding, is the Bahurusa are the main line from which all others branch off or have hyped off from, So just like the main ruling line of the Botswana, from which all others like sort of like main branches separated from.
So yeah, I think you should also just put it into perspective by saying today we find that you find Bahuruti in Botswana, in South Africa, in Namibia and Zimbabwe to a smaller extent. So, and all in all, there are about 50 or more groups and subgroups of Botswana.
Yeah.
So Bahuruti was the first one. The primary one, because supposedly we came here as migrators. We were coming in from a different part of Africa, and we were led by the people who today are still called Bahuruti, or who are now called Bahuruti, because maybe at a different time they weren't called that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I think that we should show what that seniority means in those terms, because there seems to be some kind of a dispute to that, even though it's not as wide in Botswana. There's no challenge.
Yeah, no, well, the dispute. I don't know if
on social media.
It's on social media because the same people that dispute now. If you go to their forefathers' records, it shows they tell it bluntly. Yeah, of course there had been other seniority claims there, but
has anybody claimed to be more senior than Bahuruti?
Yeah,
I mean, back in the day.
Back in the day, not at the beginning of the colonial era. Yeah, you start seeing documents that say
who
the Bakwena. The Bakwena. you know. Other than that, there isn't really anyone. Yeah.
And Bahuruti and Bakwena are difficult to deal with just because they are so intertwined.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah,
very much.
But I mean, what does the oral history say?
No, it says Bahuruts are senior, but
Yeah.
like about the people are one people also.
Yeah,
so
they
I
are the
don't
same
be
people.
careful
Yeah,
myself.
they are the same people, honestly. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, now do you want to tell us about Bahurutsi specifically? As a member of that group, I know that we have fallen so far and so low down. What is it? What have we fallen from? Is it just grace?
Political
power. We don't have that political power anymore. We are now, even in Botswana, for instance, we are, what is it? We are subsumed under two different tribes, three or even three sometimes. And we know that there was a lot of political maneuvering that brought that about. It's not like it was a straightforward thing. But in South Africa, where there are more Botswana than there are in Botswana, Bahurusi are still they're not very powerful currently.
Yeah, no, that is because now power if you look at who has power in South Africa, so you find that it's those that, have mining, they enjoy mining royalties from the land, the mining activities in the territory. Yeah. With Bahurusi, you find that, that land has reduced like to a quarter of the original territory since the European invasion. So even some of these land, whatever deals that benefit other nations are on Bahurusi soil. But to talk about both sides, it has been the same thing, It's all politics of today.
So, okay, when somebody wants to understand about Bahurusi, where is the best place to start learning?
First, you have to imagine the territory without borders. You have to establish where the Botswana territory or the Botswana country begins and ends. So you shouldn't even look at it with the eyes with today's eyes. Then like how to navigate. The center, the capital is in Lufuruti, which is in the South African side. But they, the subgroups or the how spread the Bahuruts are, you find that we have the Batlaro group of Bahuruts who are really one of the most important branch of the Bahuruts, living on the other side of Molop, around the Kuruman and Freiburg areas. They have several branches, and in Botswana you find them in Thabo.
Even in Namibia.
You find that group in that area, and it's something that I'm yet to research, but with Batlaro in Thabo, because I know that area previously, before Botswana took independence, it was a land that was said to be a crown land, So as you said, in Botswana, you have Bahuruts who are subsumed by other groups, but I want to know the status of the Batlaro in Tsawon today, because now the colonial government or the South African, the British government is no longer the custodians of that land as they were before. I want to know the status. Would we say they're subsumed under, but because that status had been relegated by the whites, and because, as you've said, there's been a lot of political maneuvering. Now, I see that there have been changes in the political structures in Botswana. I'm yet to see what the experience, the Bahurich experience would be, you know.
So no,
because today, if you go to Mankodi and Manyana, you find them, these people had always pleaded with government that he give them a district of their own where they could, practice their culture and, to full effect. Now they are within one district, even though they have other, members of the Twana nation with them who they are related with. I don't know what the status is in that district. What will be the implications of that, because I think that is about a month year old now. Yeah.
So no, I want you to take us back to the beginning. Like, I want to know the story of Matsieng or Lowe or whatever, that mythical part, whether you think it is historical. Well, I shouldn't have said that mythical part there. There are two versions of our origins as Botswana or as Bahurutsi. There's what is clearly just historical narration, straightforward, and then there's also this other accounts that seem to be, mythical in origin and character and style. When the people talk about where we come from and all that, I just want to hear from you what the story is. There's the historical and which I think is the mythical.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can make it. You can separate them. Just tell me.
You can't separate them, because, well, if you talk about Lowe and Matieng, these people are our greatest ancestors, right? According to Twana history and religion, because it's like where they meet each other, because Botswana in that faith, there are people who they honor those as their gods. Yeah, they honor those as their gods, and because they are their ancestors, because there's a reverence to our ancestors in the Setswana faith, So also, like, your ancestor is Jumudimuaha, yeah, meaning your great grandparents or your ancestors are your gods. Your kind of like angels, maybe looking after you.
Okay.
So.
And then the historical part of Malupe, I want you to give me that lineage.
The lineage of Malupe. Okay.
The origin story.
The origin story. Well, if you talk about Malupe, we are talking about the father of Moruti and Kwena.
Is that where the genealogy starts?
No. Malupe, the son of Masilo. That's why Bahuruti like to say ke bana ba ga Malupe, ke tshwanyana tsa ga Malupe a Masilo. Yeah, then you find Malupe, Melore, Mehete, Mogale. I think Meheta Mogale is also contained in the Bakwena poem. Oh, what does it say? So there's Malupe, Masilo, Melore, Mehete, Mogale, Mankapan. So according to those that I received my education from, Mankapan is the last known chief of Botswana, or king of Botswana. So Mankapani, a lot of Botswana like to say Mogale Makapani, Mogala in shock or whatever substitute. What do you call those things?
Yeah, I know the word is just here, but it's not coming out.
Yeah.
Interjection or whatever. No, something else. But anyway, yeah.
Yes, yeah, yes. It's like the equivalent of "oh my God" in in English. So you are just like saying. So even in the language that we use today, we still use those names as we use those names in our everyday language. We call on these people in our everyday language. So that's as far as I could take it, as far as the kings of Botswana.
So you're saying right up to Mangapani, that's when the Botswana were still united?
Yes. No, with Mangapani, Botswana were united, I like to think. But there are communities that I can't really account for, like the Barolo, and others. But because you find that some other day I was reading a paper on who are these people? People that are supposedly Barolong offshoot, but they were mentioning names that are in this very same lineage that I'm speaking of.
Who are those?
I think it's
no, I'm talking about the group that you're talking about.
I think it's Banumpi.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it's Banumpi. No, it's not Banumpi. It's Batsope. Batsope. From those there's a very large ward. The existence is a very large ward in Kanye. Yeah, I found that. And there. But also you must know that in the Saul Plaki and Mudurimulama's book, they're recorded to have said they come from the same lineage, and they say the Barolin traditions goes like it is Mutulwe of Banumpi who branched off with his followers from this same main group of Bahurutsi and Bakwena. Bahurutsi and Bakwena. I don't know exactly where in that lineage.
No, I'm saying, is it under Mankapani's rule or what? Or they don't say?
They don't say who under who's. Oh, actually, they say Pule's reign, but Pule came really much later.
It could have been. There could have been another Pule before.
There could have been another Pule before, yes. So, yeah. So what they said is they hived off first. Banompe hived off first. That is Barolon saying that.